let Bijit set the camera. ठीक है. Ready? Go live. Namaste everyone. Welcome to another episode of Navavimar's podcast. So today we have the episode 2 of our podcast series on Hindumisia and Hindu genocide in Bangladesh. So today we have again author Mr. Bijeet Prasantha. Namaskar, Bijit.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Bijit. Yes, I can hear you clearly. Namaskar.
Namaste, yeah. The camera is fine, right? Everything is good?
Yeah. All audio check good. Camera is good. We are ready to go. So as discussed in our previous live stream, so today we are going to cover a very important topic in the history of India and also Hindus. That is the 1971 war, which took place between India and erstwhile Pakistan. So Bijitda is going to give a little bit more detailed analysis of 1971 war that happened between the two countries. So Bijitda,
Hello? Yeah. Yes. Okay.
go ahead.
So, should I start now?
Yes, go ahead.
Cool. Thank you. Uh, yeah, so in the last episode, right, we discussed basically the definition of genocides and the idea of genocide, how it can sort of propagate, right? The message to commit genocide, the process of whitewashing, right? The way to justify genocide. So we discussed extensively in the last episode. Um, and so in this episode, what we are going to do, we are pretty much going to discuss a chapter from modern India, or broadly saying from the Indian subcontinent, um, to sort of understand through an example how genocide can sort of occur within a race, right, or within a specific place that is, in our context, the greater Indian subcontinent. And in this episode, we are going to specifically focus on like the direct action day in Calcutta, and we will also try to cover the Noakhali genocide, um, to sort of again understand the context of, in the context of genocide, how genocide is a continuous process and how this is still going on, right? We know. So we are basically, this broadcast is being delivered by us in the context of the genocide that is happening in our in Bangladesh right now, so to say, right? Okay. So yeah, having said that, so we are sort of quickly advancing into a period where where the partition of India is being discussed, right? And no Hindu organizations have accepted the partition of India. This is like around 1945, 46, and also around 47. And in this period, no Hindu organization has accepted the partition of India, but it was Congress, which was obviously a secular organization, right? Muslim League and the British who were trying to divide India, right? And in this context, one of the prominent Congress leader was Jawaharlal Nehru, and he had something going on in his mind, right? In this regard. Um, so in the context of Bengal, I am quoting right now from a book, Guilty Men of India's Partition by Ram Manohar Lohia, where Nehru is acknowledging before Lohia a very important point, okay, or so to say, his belief about Bengal and why Bengal should be partitioned from the quote unquote mainland India. And here Nehru is saying, Lohia, quote, I may be permitted to refer. Okay, this is Lohia saying about Nehru. So Lohia opines and comments, quote, I may be permitted to refer to a private conversation with Mr. Nehru in Noakhali around the end of 1946, to which I had more or less been forced by Mahatma Gandhi. Mr. Nehru spoke of the water, slime, bush, and tree that he found everywhere in East Bengal, East Pakistan or Bangladesh, right? He said that was not the India he or I knew and wanted with some vehemence to cut East Bengal away from the mainland of India. So basically, here Nehru is sort of trying to opine that because Bengal has so much bush and rivers and mudland, so that's why that cannot be the mainland India, and hence Bengal should be much of the Bengal, well, pretty much all the Bengal should be partitioned from the quote unquote mainland India. Okay. So with this mindset, Congress was approaching partition. One more point was that all these Congress leaders, they will mostly old. Okay. They probably were very tired and did not want to sort of go into a direct sort of scuffle, right, with the Bengal and with the political leaders in Bengal and Punjab. So their idea might be that if Bengal and Punjab, because they are such big provinces and they have such important say in the mainstream Indian politics. So if Bengal and Punjab is partitioned, it will sort of lead to a dominance of the so to say the UP United Province politics, which is basically the Uttar Pradesh politics, right? And nowadays we call it Hindi belt politics, right? So that was their idea, probably that Bengal and Punjab should be partitioned so that the politics of the United Province can lead the politics of India. Okay, so this is a period where Congress is actively sort of um, engaging themselves in partitioning India, right? Historical event, um, and then what happened? Uh, right now, I want to now tell you about the other side um, of the stake, right? The other stakeholder in this whole partition was the All India Muslim League, right? They wanted a nation called Pakistan. There was a Lahore resolution uh, in which this whole idea of Pakistan was sort of passed. Um, and probably not a, I mean, they tried to sort of propagate the idea to sort of blackmail the mainstream Indian polity, but gradually this whole idea to create a sovereign Pakistan got was germinating, okay, in India. And uh, and so then in that context, the World War II just ended, right, 1945. And then around the same time there was an election in the UK, in England, so to say, and Labour Party came to power, okay, in Britain. um, and so after Labour Party came to power, they announced a general election in India to be held in 1946. Now, here, here, what is going on? Then, soon after hearing this, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he basically declared that they, like the Muslim League, should use that election and sort of mobilize the Muslims of India to ask for a plebiscite to create this new nation named Pakistan. And then the Working Committee of Bengal Provincial Muslim League, BMPL, adopted a resolution on 1st of August 1945 in line of this thought. Okay. And then basically after this resolution was passed, it was a downward spiral because Jinnah and the Muslim League, they directly proclaimed war against the rest of the Hindu India, quote unquote, Hindu India, right? And here I am to substantiate that. Here I am quoting Jinnah's comment, quote, "We are therefore," so this is Jinnah saying, right, in his speech, in one of his speeches, quote, "We are therefore in the midst of war, as the general election is going to be the first pitched battle for Pakistan with the enemies of Muslim India." Okay, the Kafirs, right, the Hindus. And then again, liberated India must necessarily be, as Allah has made it, a subcontinent having complete independence for every nation inhabiting it. Then he goes on, "We did not like to fight the Congress. They unjustly and unfairly, like the fascist aggressors, have forged war on us. With complete faith in our ultimate victory, with heart within and God overhead, let us go to war." Unquote. Right? So here we can see in his speech there are three main points, right? Okay, there is this general election coming, which is basically a war. We have to fight for Allah. And third point is, uh, India is a subcontinent having complete independence, and they are asking for complete independence of every nation inhabiting it. So these are the three narratives that Jinnah was trying to put forward. And this point that there are different, so many different nations in India, this was a narrative that Jinnah basically borrowed from from the then Communist Party of India. So around, I think, 1942 to 1943, Communist Party of India, specifically this guy from that from that Communist Party, Gangadhar Adhikari. So Gangadhar Adhikari came up with a thesis that there is some noise coming. Anyway, so there was this. So Gangadhar Adhikari came up with this thesis that India is not one nation, but India is basically comprised of 18 different nations. Okay, and Bengali, Odia, Gujarati, Sindhi, Punjabi, and yeah, Maratha. They all were basically different nations. So in to sort of propagate this idea further, um, Communist Party of India proposed that India should be sort of broken apart into 18 different nations, and then if Muslims want, they can form one single nation by comprising together the area from Punjab, the area from northwest frontier province, and Bengal and Assam. Okay, so Communist Party of India, what they were basically saying, कि Muslims can sort of create a single nation, right? By combining Punjab, NWFP, Bengal, and Assam. But erstwhile the other part of India, they should be broken apart into not one, not two, but into 18 different nations. And here is Jinnah sort of putting forward the same idea. Okay. Now, then on 15th of March 1946, British Prime Minister Clement Attlee, so he announced in the British Parliament that they will be sending a commission, okay, uh, of three cabinet ministers, um, and these ministers, the name of them were Pethick Lawrence, A.V. Alexander, and Stafford Cripps, right? And these three ministers, with the Indian leaders, they are going to discuss the transfer of power with the Indian leaders. And obviously, Jinnah was not happy. Jinnah said that okay, there is this discussion going on between Congress and the British and Muslims of India. Again, the same victim card, right? Muslims of India are being oppressed. Their issues are not being discussed in the cabinet commission. And then Jinnah now sort of went one step ahead. He said that because the cabinet commission is not discussing extensively the interest of Indian Muslims, the Muslims of India should um, commit direct action day, and he also announced the date, which was 16th of August 1946, against all the quote unquote kafirs of India. Okay. And here Jinnah is writing, quote, now we bid goodbye to constitutional methods. Now the time has come for the Muslim nation to resort to direct action. I am not prepared to discuss ethics. We have a pistol and are in a position to use it. So this is a direct call for violence, right? And then there was this ex prime minister named of Bengal, whose name was Nizamuddin, and he clearly said that okay, this direct action day on 16th of August would not necessarily be non-violent. Okay, and every Bengali Muslim are going to participate with their own responsibilities, right? uh, and then they go on, basically, on 29th of July 1946, they passed a direct action resolution. And basically this resolution was a pure sort of cocktail of anarchy, violence, and obviously Hindumisia, right? And here they are writing that, I want to quote some part of it. um, yeah, so quote, whereas the league has today resolved to reject the proposal embodied in the statement of cabinet delegation and the viceroy of May 16, 1946, due to intransigence of the Congress on the one hand, and with the breach of faith with the Muslims by the British government on the other. And whereas Muslim India has exhausted without success all efforts to find a peaceful solution of the Indian problems by compromise and constitutional means, whereas the Congress is bent upon setting up a caste Hindu Raj in India with the connivance of the British, and whereas recent events have shown that the power politics and not justice and fair play are the deciding factors in Indian affairs. And he goes on and he says that the Council of All India Muslim League is convinced that the time has now come for the Muslim nation to resort to direct action to achieve Pakistan and to assert their just rights and to vindicate their honor and to get rid of the present slavery under British and the contemplated future of caste Hindu domination, right? So this is basically, now you can see that they are sort of punching this whole caste narrative, right, with this typical Marxist narrative of oppressed and oppressor, right, to sort of put forward their idea that okay, we are going to resort to violence to create this nation of Pakistan. And in fact, their idea was sort of in a way very broader. They wanted to sort of commit the same amount of violence, not only in Kolkata, but in Kolkata, Mumbai, Madras, and then in the Punjab, in Lahore, Karachi, Bangalore, right? To sort of create this sort of anarchy, right? At a very critical juncture of Indian independence. Um, and yeah, and also about the caste narrative, right? You might be now listening a lot about the recent narrative of Congress, who are again jarring this caste narrative to create and broaden the fault line, right, in India. But the same language in which the Congress recently is talking, this language was used and invented by the Muslim League and the Communist parties. Okay, the history of Communist parties again also in India is also very extensive, and but that is not in the scope of today's talk. So we are going to discuss that as well in some of the upcoming talk. Okay. Okay. Now how this direct action day is going to sort of happen? What is the plan? So that whole program was published in this Star of India on 13th of August 1946. Okay, so there's this meeting going on within closed door between Muslim League's netas, right? There was a Hindu guy whose name was Just let me check. Who actually came to know about Haren Ghosh. So Haren Ghosh was a guy, was a Congress leader probably. No, Haren Ghosh was the foremost impresario of India. So he was in some public position who came to know about this vile plan of the Muslim League leaders. Okay, but before he could leak the plan, he was brutally sort of killed by the Ashrafi leaders. Okay, his body was basically cut into pieces, stuffed into a steel trunk, and thrown in Rawdon Square. Okay, and the leading character behind Haren Ghosh's murder was the then Prime Minister of Bengal, because Bengal was a province at that time. So the topmost elected position was named Prime Minister. So basically, the leading character behind this Haren Ghosh's murder was Hussein Surawardi. Okay, who was again a very sort of cutter Muslim League leader. At that time, he was around, I think, 50 years old. Actually, he was 47 years old. And British also did not like that guy match. Okay, so here is one of the so here is a description of Hussein Surawardi by written in one of the books, Freedom at Midnight, and the writer is Larry Collins and Dominic Lapierre. Okay, so Lapierre is writing that this guy, the 47-year-old Surawardi, was the prototype of the corrupted and venal politician. His political philosophy was simple. Once a man had been elected to office, there was never a reason to leave. Surawarti had assured his continued presence in power by using public funds to maintain a private army of hoodlums who quite literally clubbed his political rivals into silence. And this guy was also very corrupt. So Lapierre is also writing, quote, during the 1942 famine that had devastated Bengal, Surawarti had intercepted and sold on the black market tons of grain destined for the starving of Calcutta, an operation which had earned him millions of rupees. Um, and he dressed in tailor-made silk suits and two-tone alligator shoes. His jet black hair, dressed each morning by his personal barber, sparkled with brilliantine. Surawarti had given his free run, setting himself, it seemed, the prodigious task of bedding every cabaret dancer and high class whore in Calcutta. So this guy was also engaged in prostitution. Okay. Worst of all, his hands were covered with blood. By declaring a public holiday and letting his Muslim League followers know the attention of his police will be elsewhere, Surawardi had set the stage of the killing for the killings, which had ravaged Calcutta on Jinnah's direct action day in August 1946. So Hussein Surawardi, this sort of vile, corrupt guy, was the then Prime Minister of Bengal. And because the police and everything was in his hand, right, under his control, so he sort of designed the plan of direct action, right, on that day. He sort of controlled the police while the city was being ravaged. And remember, Calcutta at that time was the second most prominent city in the whole British Empire, right, after London. And so the idea was, okay, if we can ravage Calcutta, we will be sending a very chilling message to the Hindus of India, right? And also we will capture the attention of the global media in this regard, right? Anyway,
Bijitda,
Mhm.
Bijitda, we have a special guest with us. So as you and many audience are aware that there was a great show of solidarity by the Bangladeshi Hindus in Rangpur, which happened yesterday.
Right, yes,
Yeah.
it was very
So
inspiring, right?
yeah, so this was something which was heartening to every one of us who have a solidarity with our Hindu brothers in Bangladesh. And fortunately, we have somebody from Bangladesh who will be giving us a bit more insight, a ground report on what happened in that Rangpur congregation of Hindus and how they feel about it. So, for the audience
Right.
across the world who are listening to this in India and other parts of the country, so now I will be just adding Arjun. We have somebody from GD, so we will be adding him to the call.
Sure.
Arjun, you have not connected your mic. You need to connect the mic to speak. So we are unable to add you to the stream. So can you? Okay, yeah. Arjun,
হ্যাঁ দাদা নমস্কার, বলেন।
নমস্কার,
Namaskar.
নমস্কার, নমস্কার। হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা বলো তোমরা কেমন আছো?
আছি কোন রকম আর কি,
আচ্ছা,
ভয়ে
না ভালো
ভীত
থেকো,
হয়ে।
ভালো থেকো, অসুবিধে নেই। আচ্ছা, আমরা তোমার থেকে জানতে চাই যে রংপুরে যে কালকে তোমাদের আহ, তোমরা যে কংগ্রিগেট হয়েছিলে, তো সেখানে তোমাদের কি কি ডিমান্ড আছে সেটা যদি বলো সবাইকে। এটা এখানে পুরো ভারতবর্ষের লোক শুনছে।
হ্যাঁ, আমাদের রংপুরে কালকে হিন্দু
তোমার আওয়াজটা কেটে গেছে, একটুখানি চেক করো। অর্জুন, তুমি কি আমার শুনতে পাচ্ছ? অ্যাপোলজিস অডিয়েন্স ফর দিস অডিও
হ্যাঁ
ইস্যু।
দাদা শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
হ্যাঁ, একটু আবার করে বলো, শুরু থেকে বলো।
আম, আমাদের রংপুর বিভাগে মহাসমাবেশটা হয়েছে আমাদের ৮ দফা দাবি নিয়ে আর কি। এখানে আমাদের ছিল যে আমাদের কি বলে হিন্দু
তুমি একটা
মন্ত্রণালয়।
একটা তুমি একটা একটা করে বলো, অসুবিধা নেই, আরামসে বলো, চাপ নেই।
হ্যাঁ, প্রথমে ছিল যে আমাদের সংখ্যালঘু মন্ত্রণালয় একটা করতে হবে। তারপর ছিল আমাদের উপর এই যে এত অত্যাচার অন্যায় হয়েছে এগুলোর সুষ্ঠু বিচার।
তারপর? হ্যাঁ, বলো। আমরা দুটো শুনলাম, ৩ নম্বরটা? অর্জুন, তুমি কি আমার কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছ? There is some audio issue, looks like. We'll try to fix it. Arjun, তুমি কি আছো? তুমি শুনতে পাচ্ছ কথা? Okay, we'll just try to add him again. Okay. Bijita, you can continue.
Yes, hopefully Arjun will be back in a
Hmm.
few minutes. So we are just making good use of that time
Yeah.
to sort of um, proceed.
হ্যাঁ দাদা দুঃখিত আমার,
কোনো অসুবিধা নেই, অসুবিধা
দাদা
নেই, বলো।
দুঃখিত।
হ্যাঁ, বলো বলো।
তো দাদা ৩ নম্বরে হলো আমাদের কি বলে দুর্গাপূজার ছুটি ৫ দিন করতে হবে। ৪
ঠিক আছে।
নম্বরে হলো যে আমাদের সংসদীয় আসনে ২০% সিট বরাদ্দ মানে রাখা লাগবে। আহ তারপর ৫ নম্বরে আমাদের যে বাংলাদেশের দেবোত্তর সম্পত্তিগুলো আছে, আমাদের যতগুলো শক্তিপীঠ, সীতাকুণ্ড, তারপর আমাদের পঞ্চগড়ে আছে মা বোধেশ্বরী মন্দির, তারপর যশোরেশ্বরী মন্দির যশোরে, যেটা বর্তমান সাতক্ষীরার শ্যামনগরে আছে আর কি, শ্যামনগর উপজেলায়। তারপর ৬ নম্বরে আছে আমাদের মানে প্রত্যেকটা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় এবং কলেজে আমাদের জন্য আলাদা মন্দিরের ব্যবস্থা অথবা যেগুলো প্রেয়ার রুমের ব্যবস্থা করা আর কি। তারপর আছে শেষেরটা দাদা আমাদের সংখ্যালঘু কমিশন গঠন করতে হবে। এই হলো আমাদের ৮ দফা দাবি।
আচ্ছা, এবার আমার প্রশ্ন হবে যে তোমাদের ওপর যে অত্যাচার হচ্ছে সেটা আমরা
দাদা
দেখতে
শুনতে
পাচ্ছি
পেয়েছেন
সোশ্যাল
আমার
মিডিয়া।
কথাগুলো?
হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ, তোমরা সব শুনতে পেয়েছি, আমরা শুনতে পেয়েছি। আমার যে নেক্সট প্রশ্নটা আছে সেটা হচ্ছে তোমাদের ওপর যে অত্যাচার হচ্ছে, হ্যাঁ, তো সেই নিয়ে তুমি আহ, ভারতবর্ষে বা যারা যারা শুনছেন তাদেরকে কি কি বলতে চাও যে তোমাদের কিভাবে হেল্প করতে পারে? তুমি আমার
দাদা
প্রশ্ন
বলেন।
শুনতে পেয়েছো? তুমি আমার প্রশ্ন শুনতে পেয়েছো কি আবার বলবো?
না না
আচ্ছা,
আবার বলেন
আবার
দাদা,
আবার-
নেক্সট
আচ্ছা,
প্রশ্নটা শুনতে।
আমার প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে যে এখানে তো তোমাকে অনেকেই শুনছে, তো তুমি কি কিছু বলতে চাও ভারতের মানুষকে বা বিশেষ দেশের মানুষকে, যে তারা তোমাদের কিভাবে হেল্প করতে পারে তোমাদের এই কঠিন সময়?
হ্যাঁ দাদা, মানে আমাদের কিভাবে সাহায্য করতে পারে আর কি।
হুম,
হুম।
মানে মানবিকতা হিসেবে আমরা সবাই তো একটা মানব ধর্মে বিশ্বাস করি। তো তোমাদের যে যে অত্যাচারটা হচ্ছে সেটা তো একটা মানে মানবিকতার ক্ষেত্রে একটা কলঙ্ক বলে আমার মনে হয়। তো সেই জন্য একজন মানুষ মানুষ হিসেবে আমি তোমার বা বাকি যারা শুনছে তারা কিভাবে তোমাদেরকে সাহায্য করতে পারে, কারণ আমরা দেখছি যে তোমাদের ওপর অনেক অত্যাচার হচ্ছে। তো আমরা কি করতে পারি, তুমি যদি বলো তাহলে আমাদের তাহলে সবার সুবিধা হয়।
তো দাদা বেসিক্যালি আপাতত তো সমবেদনা জানানো, এটাই আমরা আশা করতেছি। তারপর কি বলে, আমরা চাই যে আমাদের যে উপর যে এত অন্যায় অত্যাচার হইতেছে এই বিষয়টা যাতে বহির্বিশ্বে পৌঁছে যায়, এবং আমাদের একটা বহির্বিশ্ব থেকে একটা সাপোর্ট পাই আর কি, যাতে আমাদের মনোবল শক্ত থাকে। আমরা নিজেরাই নিজের জন্মভূমিতে, আমরা কিন্তু কেউ দাদা আমাদের নিজের জন্মভূমি ত্যাগ করতে চাই না, এখানেই থাকতে চাই, এখানেই মরতে চাই আর কি। তো এই জন্য যাতে আমরা মানে একটু সুন্দর বাসযোগ্য একটা জন্মভূমিতে মানে থাকতে পারি ভালোভাবে, এইটাই আমাদের কিছু, যাতে একটু সাপোর্ট পাই আপনাদের।
বুঝলাম, মানে তোমরা আহ, বিশ্ব থেকে একটা মরাল সাপোর্ট চাইছো, যাতে তোমাদের যে ওপর যে অত্যাচার হচ্ছে সেই নিয়ে যেন মানুষেরা কথা বলে, এটাই তো?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ দাদা, হ্যাঁ এটাই।
আচ্ছা, আচ্ছা, যেটা এবার আমার প্রশ্ন হবে যে আহ, তোমরা কি বাংলাদেশ গভর্নমেন্টের কাছে তোমাদের ডিমান্ডস গুলোকে কি রেখেছো অফিসিয়ালি, মানে লিখিতভাবে, অ্যাজ এ সংগঠন হিসেবে?
হ্যাঁ দাদা, হ্যাঁ দাদা, আমাদের আগে তো অনেক সংগঠন ছিল বাংলাদেশে, ছোট বড় অনেক, কিন্তু আমরা সম্মিলিতভাবে একটা হিন্দু জাগরণ মঞ্চ তৈরি করেছি, যেখানে আমাদের সাধু সন্থ থেকে শুরু করে বিভিন্ন সংগঠনের নেতাকর্মী সবাই আছে, মানে
হুম, হুম।
সবাই এখানে ধর্ম সরি জাতপাত নির্বিশেষে আমাদের যা কিছু আছে, মানে কি বলে, সংগঠন সবকিছু নির্বিশেষে আর কি এক প্ল্যাটফর্মে আসছি। আর এই প্ল্যাটফর্মের মাধ্যমে আমরা আমাদের যে দাবিগুলো আছে, 8 দফা দাবি, এটা আমরা সরকারের কাছে আর কি লিখিতভাবেই পেশ করছি।
বুঝলাম। আমার আরেকটা প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে যে আমরা শুনছি যে ইসকনকে নিষিদ্ধ করার ব্যাপারে অনেক আন্দোলন হচ্ছে, অনেক লোক কথাবার্তা বলছে। তো এইটা কেন? আমরা সবাই জানতে চাই যে ইসকন এমন কি কাজ করেছে যে তার জন্য তাদের সেই সংগঠনকে নিষিদ্ধ করার জন্য অনেকেই বলছেন।
আসলে দাদা ইসকন কি বলবো, মানে ইসকনের যে একটা প্রভাব সারা বিশ্বে আছে, ইসকনের মাধ্যমেই আমাদের হিন্দুদের নির্যাতনের কিছু কিছু বিষয় সারা পৃথিবীর মাঝে তুলে ধরা হচ্ছে। এই বিষয়টা বাংলাদেশের কিছু মৌলবাদী সমাজের কিছু লোক আছে যারা চাইতেছেন আর কি, ওরা এখানকার স্থানীয় মানে আমাদের মুসলিম ভাইদের আর কি উস্কানি দিতেছে, যারা যাতে আমাদের এই প্রাণের যে সংগঠন ইসকন আছে একে বয়কট করা হয়, অথবা নিষিদ্ধ করা হয় আর কি। কিন্তু আর একটা কথা হলো যে আমাদের যে চিন্ময় প্রভু আছে, গোপীনাথ প্রভু আছে, ওনারা কিন্তু ইসকন থেকেই উঠে আসছে আর কি। ঠিক আছে দাদা, এখন এই
হুম।
ইসকনকে যদি নিষিদ্ধ করা হয় আর কি, তাদের মানে কণ্ঠ রোধ হবে। এই জন্য ওরা চাচ্ছে যে বাংলাদেশ থেকে ইসকন নিষিদ্ধ হোক। ইসকনকে জঙ্গিবাদী এরকম একটা সংগঠন হিসেবে করতে চাইতেছে, কিন্তু তারা জানে না যে ইসকন সারা বিশ্বে কত মানবতাবাদী কাজ করে আর কি, কত মানবতার সাথে কাজ করে, কত কি বলে ক্ষুধার্ত ব্যক্তিকে খাদ্য দান করে, তারপর বস্ত্র দান, অনেক কিছু করে আর কি। মানে কি বলবো, একটা পারফেক্ট মানবতাবাদী সংগঠন হলো আমাদের ইসকন। যদিও একটা হিন্দুদের ধর্মীয় সংগঠন, কিন্তু মানবতার দিক থেকে তারা 100%। কিন্তু কি বলবো, কিছু ব্যক্তির উস্কানিতে ওরা চাচ্ছে যে ইসকন বাংলাদেশে নিষিদ্ধ হোক।
বুঝতে পারলাম। তো সেটা আমিও জানি। আমিও ইস্কনের মন্দিরে যাই, যে ওখানে গিয়ে দেখি যে কত ভালো করে ওরা মানুষের সেবা করে। তো আমার বক্তব্য হচ্ছে যে তুমি যে বললে মৌলবাদী সংগঠনগুলো এই নিয়ে সোচ্চার হয়েছে, তো এটার পেছনে কি কারণ থাকতে পারে? তুমি তো থাকো ওখানে। এই যে মৌলবাদী সংগঠনগুলো আজকে খুব বেড়ে উঠেছে, অনেক ভোকাল হয়ে গেছে, এর পেছনে কি কারণ হতে পারে সেটা তোমার মনে হয় ব্যক্তিগতভাবে? ঠিক আছে, কোনো দল বা ইয়েকে না ইয়ে করে।
এখানে কি বলবো, এখানে অনেক কিছু কাজ করে। কথা হলো যে এই মৌলবাদী কিছু সংগঠন আছে যারা মানে চাচ্ছে যে বাংলাদেশ থেকে সব হিন্দুই চলে যাক আর কি ভারতে। তারা চাচ্ছে না যে আমরা সংগঠিত হই, তারপর ঐক্যবদ্ধ থাকি, এই বিষয়গুলো ওরা চাচ্ছে না। এই জন্য ইসকনকে বয়কট করার জন্য, নিষিদ্ধ করার জন্য উঠে পড়ে লেগেছে। আর একটা বিষয়, আম, বাংলাদেশের কিছু কিছু বিষয় আছে যে একটু মানে সেকুলার শিক্ষার হার কম। এই জন্য কি বলবো, আম, মাদ্রাসা শিক্ষায় কিছু কিছু ক্ষেত্রে মানে নতুন যারা আছে বলতে, যুবক যে বয়সে যে যারা আছে তাদেরকে ব্রেন ওয়াশ করা হয় এক বিষয়ে, যে এই বিষয়টা না বলি যে
হুম হুম হুম,
অন্য ধর্মের
বুঝলাম।
আমাদের সাথে থাকতে পারবে না, এইরকম টাইপের আর কি কিছু কথাবার্তা বলা হয়। এর জন্য তারা চাচ্ছে, কিন্তু আহ ইসকনের কোনো খারাপ কাজ দেখাতে পারতেছে না। ইসকনের ইসকন যে জঙ্গি সংগঠন এরকম কিছু ওরা প্রমাণ দেখাতে পারতেছে না, কিন্তু বলতেছে যে ইসকনকে নিষিদ্ধ করা হোক। আর এই কারণ মানে এখানে নিষিদ্ধ করার একটাই কারণ যে ইসকনের মাধ্যমে সারা বাংলাদেশের হিন্দুরা একত্রিত হচ্ছে। এই ভয়টা মানে হিন্দুরা যাতে একত্রিত না হয়, এই জন্য এরা মানে এই কাজটা করতেছে আর কি। ওরা চাইতেছে না যে আমরা একত্রিত হই।
খুব ভালো। তোমার আরেকটা প্রশ্ন আমি শেষ প্রশ্ন করবো, তারপর আমি বিজিত দাকে বলবো যে উনি যদি কিছু প্রশ্ন করেন। আমার শেষ প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে যে আমরা দেখেছি যে আমেরিকার যে রিসেন্টলি নির্বাচন হয়েছে, সেখানে তুলসী গ্যাবার্ড আছেন। তিনি এনএসএ এর হেড হয়েছেন। তো তুলসী গ্যাবার্ড একজন ইসকনের মেম্বার, বা উনি ইসকনকে ফলো করেন। ঠিক আছে, তো তোমরা কি এই নিয়ে খুব আশা করছো যে উনি কিছু তোমাদের হেল্প করবেন আমেরিকার, যেহেতু উনি মন্ত্রী হয়েছেন তুলসী গ্যাবার্ড, সেটা নিয়ে?
আহ ওনার যদি একটু আমাদের হিন্দুদের প্রতি টান থাকে, আশা করি হেল্প করবে। হিন্দু হিন্দু ভ্রাতৃত্ববোধ যদি কাজ করে ওনার মনে, যদি জাগে, আশা করি আমরা কিছু হেল্প পাবো।
হুম
অল্প একটু মানে আশা রাখছি আর কি। কিন্তু
হুম।
আমরা আমাদেরকে আমাদের দেশে আমাদের নিজেদেরই সাহায্য করার মনোভাব তৈরি করতে হবে, নিজেরাই যাতে আমরা আহ নিজেদের সাহায্য করতে পারি, যাতে আমরা নিজেরাই স্বয়ং সম্পূর্ণ হই আর কি, একে অপরকে সাহায্য করার জন্য। কিন্তু
না,
তবু
বুঝতে
আর
পারলাম।
কি আশা রাখছি
বুঝলাম
একটু।
বুঝলাম বুঝলাম। না, আমি এটা কেন বললাম তার কারণ হচ্ছে যে উনি তো সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াতে খুব ভোকাল ভাবে বলেছেন যে হিন্দুরা অত্যাচারিত হচ্ছে, তাদের উপর অত্যাচার হচ্ছে। তো উনি যেহেতু একজন হিন্দু, নিজেও হিন্দু, সেটা আমি বললাম যে হয়তো যেহেতু উনি ইসকনেরও সংগঠনের সাথে যুক্ত আছেন, তো উনি হয়তো তোমাদের মানবিকতা ধর্ম হিসেবে তোমাদের হেল্প করতে পারে। বিজিত দা,
হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ।
আপনার যদি কিছু থাকে প্রশ্ন আপনি বলতে পারেন।
হ্যাঁ, নমস্কার অর্জুন। আম,
নমস্কার।
আপনার কথাগুলো শুনে খুব ভালো লাগলো। আহ, আমার কয়েকটা স্পেসিফিক কোয়েশ্চেন আছে। যেমন প্রথম কোয়েশ্চেন হচ্ছে, যেসব জায়গায় হিন্দুদের হয়তো সংখ্যা একটু বেশি আছে, তাই না, এবং হিন্দুরা যে তা সত্ত্বেও যেসব জায়গায় অত্যাচারিত হচ্ছে, যেমন ধরুন রংপুর হয়ে গেল বা চট্টগ্রাম সাইডে, তাই না, পার্বত্য এলাকা। তো এখানে আপনারা হিন্দুদের স্বায়ত্তশাসনের দাবি রাখছেন না কেন? যে যেহেতু হিন্দুদের সব জায়গাতেই অত্যাচার হচ্ছে, সেহেতু আমরা একত্রিত থাকতে চাই, নইলে তো আমাদের মেরে ফেলা হবে। তো সেই জন্য আমাদের রংপুর, চট্টগ্রাম এবং আসামের দিকে কিছু কিছু যে এলাকা আছে, বা হয়তো যেমন যশোর, খুলনা এরিয়া আছে, এখানে তো হিন্দুরা স্বায়ত্তশাসনের দাবি করতে পারে যে কয়েকটা এলাকা আমাদের দিন, এবং এখান থেকে আমরা আমাদের এমপি হোক যাই হোক এদেরকে নির্বাচিত করে, এরা হিন্দু এমপি হবে, যেটা আপনারা 20% রিপ্রেজেন্টেশনের কথা বলছেন। এটাকে আরো একটু স্পেসিফিক করে রংপুর, যশোর, খুলনা, আমাদের ওপরের দিকে আসামের দিকের যে এরিয়াগুলো, এবং চট্টগ্রাম, এখানে আপনারা স্বায়ত্তশাসনের দাবি রাখুন, তাই না? তাহলে জিনিসটা ট্যাকেল করতেও সুবিধা হবে, তাহলে এইসব জায়গায় হিন্দুদের একত্রিত করা যাবে। আর একটা তো যেমন বাকি যে বাংলাদেশে আছে, ঢাকার আশেপাশে হোক বা নারায়ণগঞ্জ হোক, এই জায়গাগুলোই তো মানে হিন্দুদের জেনোসাইড ঘটেই চলেছে, তাই না? এটা তো রোজকার ঘটনা, হিন্দুদের কনভার্ট করা হচ্ছে, মহিলা হোক বা পুরুষ হোক, তাদেরকে কনভার্ট করা হচ্ছে, কিছু কিছু ক্ষেত্রে খুন করা হচ্ছে, তাই না? তো সেক্ষেত্রে হিন্দুদের শুধু মানে ভার্চুয়াল নেটওয়ার্কে একত্রিত হওয়া, এর বাইরে গিয়ে মানে এর টু গো বিয়ন্ড দ্যাট, হিন্দুদের ফিজিক্যালি একত্রিত হতে হবে, একটা জায়গায় একত্রিত হতে হবে, তাই না? জিওগ্রাফিক্যালি একত্রিত হতে হবে। তো সেই জন্য যে এই জায়গাগুলো আছে, এই জায়গাগুলো আপনারা স্বায়ত্তশাসনের দাবি রাখুন এবং বলুন যে বাংলাদেশের বাকিরা হিন্দুরা এইসব জায়গায় মাইগ্রেট করুক, এখানে যদি শান্তিতে থাকতে পারে, তাহলে বাংলাদেশের সরকারের তো প্রবলেম হওয়ার কথা নেই। তো এই দাবিটা আপনারা তুলুন যে রংপুর, চট্টগ্রাম, যশোর, খুলনা এবং আসামের নিচের এলাকাগুলো স্বায়ত্তশাসন।
হ্যাঁ দাদা, আমি আপনার কথাটা বুঝতে পারছি। দাদা, এখানে কিছু কারণ আছে। যেমন এখানে আমরা হিন্দুরা এখনো সেইভাবে একত্রিত হতে পারি নাই। তারপর আমাদের যে 8 দফা দাবি আছে, এগুলো এখনো পূরণ হয় নাই আর কি। এখন কথা হলো যে এই দাবিগুলো যদি পূরণ হয়, অথবা আমরা হিন্দুরা যদি সবাই যদি একটা প্ল্যাটফর্মে এসে একত্রিত হতে পারি, তো পরবর্তীতে হয়তো দাবি রাখতে পারি এই অঞ্চলগুলোতে, রংপুর, চিটাগং, যশোর, খুলনা, এইসব জায়গায় আর কি। এখানে তো আমরা হিন্দুরা বেশি আছি, পরবর্তীতে আমরা চিন্তা ভাবনা রাখবো আর কি আপনার কথা শুনে।
হ্যাঁ, আমার আরেকটা সাজেশন আছে, সেটা হচ্ছে যে জেনারেলি যে বাংলাদেশে আদমশুমারি হয়, যে জনগণনা হয়, সেখানে এটা একটা অভিযোগ আছে বাংলাদেশ সরকারের বিরুদ্ধে যে ওরা হিন্দুদের পপুলেশনকে, হিন্দুদের জনসংখ্যাকে কম করে দেখায়। আম, এই মানে লিটারালি যদি হয়তো যদি কোনো জায়গায় 20% হিন্দু থাকে, সেটাকে কমিয়ে 10% দেখানো হয়, তাই না? যাতে মানে হিন্দুদের মনোবল একটু ভাঙে। আর 2 নম্বর পয়েন্ট
হ্যাঁ,
হচ্ছে যাতে রিপ্রেজেন্টেশন কমানো যায়। তো সেক্ষেত্রে এই ব্যাপারটা আপনারা খেয়াল রাখবেন। বাংলাদেশে আপনারা হিন্দুরা নিজেদের মধ্যে একটা জনগণনা চালু করুন, এবং আমি বলবো যে তার উপর ভিত্তি করে মানে আপনারা সদস্যপদের ব্যবস্থা করতে পারেন। আপনারা বাংলাদেশের যে মুক্তিযুদ্ধ, সেখানে যে হিন্দুদের মানে বেসিক্যালি বাংলাদেশের 1971-এর যে মুক্তিযুদ্ধ, সেটা তো হিন্দু জেনোসাইডই ছিল। কারণ ম্যাক্সিমাম যাদেরকে খুন করা হয়েছিল বা হয়তো শ্লীলতাহানি এসব হয়েছিল, ম্যাক্সিমাম হয় সেকুলার মুসলিম ছিল, নয়তো হিন্দু ছিল। তো সেক্ষেত্রে এটাকে মানে অলরেডি যে একটা ন্যারেটিভ এক্সিস্ট করে যে হিন্দু জেনোসাইড ইন বাংলাদেশ, ওই জেনোসাইড কথাটা তুলুন, এই জিনিসটাকে আরো পপুলার করুন। তসলিমা নাসরিন অলরেডি দিল্লিতে বসে আছেন, তো তসলিমা নাসরিনকে যোগাযোগ করে ওনাকে বলুন যাতে উনি ভারত সরকারের সাথে কন্ট্যাক্ট করে অন্তত জেনোসাইডের জিনিসটাকে টুইটারের মাধ্যমে পপুলারাইজ করেন, যে বাংলাদেশের যে জেনোসাইড, বাংলাদেশের যে গণহত্যা, এটা এটা তো বংশানুক্রমিক ঘটনা একটা, মানে জেনারেশনস আফটার জেনারেশনস এটা হয়ে চলেছে। তো এটা তসলিমা নাসরিনের সামনে একটা বড় সুযোগ। এবং আরেকজন যে জার্নালিস্ট আছেন, শোয়েব চৌধুরী বা কি নাম, আই গেস, রাইট? তো ওনাদের বলুন যে এই জিনিসটা ভারত সরকারের সামনে সাথে দেখা করে জেনোসাইডের যে ন্যারেটিভটা আছে সেটাকে একটু পপুলারাইজ করুক। তাহলে যেমন ডোনাল্ড ট্রাম্প তো অলরেডি হিন্দু জেনোসাইড মিউজিয়াম বানাবে এসব কথাবার্তা ইউএসএ তে চলছে। তো ডিরেক্টলি যদি মোদির মাধ্যমে এদিকে পৌঁছানো যায়, বিবেক রামাস্বামী হোক আমেরিকায় বা ডোনাল্ড ট্রাম্প হোক, এদের কাছে পৌঁছানো গেলে তাহলে আপনাদেরও মনোবলও বাড়বে। আর হয়তো ডোনাল্ড ট্রাম্প যদি কোনো একটা ওদিক থেকে টুইট করে বা কথা বলে দেয়, তাহলে হিন্দুদের একত্রিত হতেও সুবিধা হবে, তাই না? আহ
হ্যাঁ দাদা।
হ্যাঁ, এই
হ্যাঁ,
কটাই কথা আমার বলার ছিল।
হ্যাঁ অর্জুন, তোমার
হ্যাঁ
কি
দাদা,
আহ, তোমার কি আরো কেউ আসবে না, তুমি একাই এসছো?
আমি একাই আসছি আর কি।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, কোনো অসুবিধা নেই। তো আমার যেটা তোমার কাছে সাজেশন হবে সেটা হচ্ছে যে তুমি আমার সাথেও কথা বলতে পারো পরে, ঠিক আছে? আমি তোমার যদি কিছু হেল্প করতে পারি মানবিকতা হিসেবে। এবং
ঠিক আছে।
তোমরা তোমরা তোমাদের যে আছে সংগঠন, তাদের যে আছে লিডারশিপ, সেই তার কাছে বলো যে তারা যেন তুলসী গ্যাবার্ড, ডোনাল্ড ট্রাম্প, বিবেক রামাস্বামী, তাসলিমা নাসরিন যেন ওদের যোগাযোগ করে এবং তাদের সাথে কোঅর্ডিনেট করে, যাতে ওরা যেন ব্যাপারটা যেন, কারণ তারা তো মনীষী ব্যক্তি, তো তারা আরো বেশি ভালো করে তোমার ব্যাপারটা বলতে পারবেন। তোমরা নিশ্চয়ই সমস্যায় আছো, কিন্তু একটু যোগাযোগ করো, একটু চেষ্টা করো। পারলে আমার সাথে যোগাযোগ করো, আমি কিছু হেল্প করে দেবো যতটা আমি পারি তোমাদের কাছ থেকে, ঠিক আছে? তো তোমরা এটা করো, যেটা বললেন বিজিত দা, যেটা আমি তোমাকে বললাম, একটু চেষ্টা করো, দেখো কি হয়। আর কিছু হলে তাহলে আমাকে তুমি কন্ট্যাক্ট করো, দেখো আমি তোমাকে হেল্প করে দেবো সে বিষয়ে।
ঠিক আছে দাদা, আপনার মানবিকতার জন্য ধন্যবাদ। আপনি যে আমাদের সাহায্য করতে চেয়েছেন এই জন্য অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। আশা করি আপনি
অসংখ্য
আমাদের
ধন্যবাদ।
সাহায্য করবেন। আর আর আপনার সাহায্যেরও হয়তো আমাদের প্রয়োজন আছে।
একদম একদম, আমরা আমরা
হ্যাঁ।
আম, আমাদের মরাল সাপোর্ট সবসময় তোমার সাথে আছে, ঠিক আছে? একজন মানবিকতা হিসেবে, মানব ধর্ম হিসেবে আমাদের সবার কর্তব্য যে তোমাদের সাহায্য করা, এবং আমি বিশ্বাসী যে সবাই তোমাদের সাহায্য করবে, হ্যাঁ, একজন মানুষ হিসেবে যে তোমরা অত্যাচারিত হচ্ছ। তোমার অনেক ধন্যবাদ আসার জন্য। নমস্কার।
নমস্কার দাদা।
নমস্কার অর্জুন।
Uh, yes, Bijitda. So we'll get back to our regular stream. So I think this was very important for us to get the proper perspective on ground, what's happening in Bangladesh,
রাইট।
especially in Rangpur, which happened. There was a gathering happened. So for the audience who do not follow Bangla, let me give a summary what Arjun has said. I think Bijitda will add something as well once I finish. So Arjun was saying that the Hindu community in Bangladesh is being persecuted uh, since 5th August. Specifically, there have been calls by the fundamentalist organizations to ban ISKCON, and the Hindu community in Bangladesh were gathered in a place called Rangpur, and there they had given 8 point demands to the Bangladesh government, and those demands we will actually put them in our as well in the stream as well. We will put the demands in the description, and also they will be also available subtitle so that you can actually understand them. The primary demands were they wanted 20% reservation in the parliament. They wanted a minority commission which will take care of their issues. They wanted the properties, temples, religious places which are run and owned by Hindus, specifically temples and other dhams. They should become under Hindu control and they should be maintaining them. They also wanted, Vijita, do you remember anything else? I remember these four things.
Yeah, so they were basically, specifically, they were like, okay, there should not be any transgression, right, into temple properties. Then within the universities and all, because probably because they um, don't have as much right to worship inside the university campuses. So they were specifically demanding for the construction of temples within university premises, so that they can gather in a safe place, right? To sort of uh, for the purpose of worship. Because in general, in places like Bangladesh or Pakistan, it is sort of risky to sort of be in a hostel and worship uh, a non-Muslim god, so to say. So these were their specific demands. Yeah, and then we were giving a few suggestions, so to say. uh, so basically all these areas which are adjacent to West Bengal, like Jashore, Khulna, Rangpur. So the Hindu percentage of population is more than 25%. I think it is around 30% to 35%. Obviously, in the census of Bangladeshi government sort of diminishes the uh, Hindu percentage in their reports, um, uh, for obviously for fundamentalist purposes. So yeah, so we were discussing. Basically, I suggested to sort of ask from the Bangladeshi government for some sort of a dominion or semi-dominion status in these areas, right? So that Hindus can settle there from across Bangladesh and sort of rule their own land under the sovereignty of obviously Bangladesh. But it's necessary because Hindus are scattered around Bangladesh. They are being subjected to discrimination and violence and conversion, right, and killing, for example, and violation of women's chastity, these kind of things. So they should sort of go to the places adjacent to West Bengal or to Chatgaon, because at the Chatgaon side also the population percentage of Hindu is well beyond 30%. Um, so they should sort of make a safe refuge and a sort of province where they can elect their own candidates to send to the Bangladesh parliament. So this was basically the gist of our discussions, and we also discussed about raising their voice and sort of reaching to the right people, like Taslima Nasrin, who is sitting in Delhi, a very famous Bengali writer, uh, who was basically who absconded from Bangladesh because she was um, well,
Bijita, not absconded, fled from Bangladesh to save her life.
yeah, fled from Bangladesh to
To
save her
save her
life.
life. Save her.
Exactly. And also to Vivek Ramaswamy, or some subordinate to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump also promised the Hindus in US and also worldwide to sort of make a Hindu genocide museum in Washington DC. So I mean the message that okay, there is a genocide going on in Bangladesh, it should reach the right people in the United States, specifically these our Republicans, the Republican Party, who is right now who is going to assume the power from January 2025. This was basically the gist of whatever we discussed. Um, yeah,
Thank you, Bijita. So we'll go back to our next section. So please go ahead with your next topic, which was I think 1946, where we had the Calcutta killings.
right. Um, right. So we were discussing basically about Hussein Surawardi, so who was elected as the prime minister of West Bengal, but who was basically a fundamentalist. And so basically, all the police force was under his control, and then he also was hiring Pathan and so to say the Pakistani Muslim soldiers to assume positions in Bengal. Um, Obviously, because the Muslim League had a long-term plan about how to devastate Calcutta, right? So yeah, so now coming back to the chronology. So 29th of July 1946, the resolution to commit the direct action was passed. And then on 13th of August 1946, there was this munajat, okay, some sort of leaflet or um, um, some sort of a booklet. Yeah, it was published in this magazine called called Star of India on 13th of August 1946, where it was very specifically written that that okay, whatever Muslim League is going to commit in Calcutta is motivated by religious doctrine, okay, the Islamic doctrine. And I'm in this regard, I am going to quote a leaflet that Munajat being circulated by Muslim League on 13th of August 1946. So this leaflet is saying, quote, "The brethren of Islam, let it be remembered that in this holy month of Ramadan," so this leaflet is basically talking to the Muslims in Bengal, and this leaflet is saying that okay, in this holy month of Ramadan, the Holy Quran revealed itself, and Ummat, their prophet, right? He appeared, and in this month, the Kafirs were annihilated in the great battle of Badr, and Makkah was wrested from their hands. The Holy Quran was freed from the hands of infidels, and the foundation of Islam was laid. And this is Muslim League leaflet is saying, to repeat, right? Then it goes on. It is by the grace of Allah that the All India Muslim League has selected this very month during which the Holy Quran revealed itself. Makkah was conquered, and it goes on that the Battle of Badr was won, and so a crusade now is needed for the establishment of Pakistan. In the similar way, this whole Battle of Badr happened, right? Men, women, the aged and the young, adult and children, all may make themselves ready for the supreme sacrifice to be offered in a crusade, which is basically the jihad for the attainment of Pakistan. Let them exhibit by their action that they are ready to sacrifice themselves, like the great martyrs Sirajuddaulah, Sayyid Ahmed Barelvi, who was basically a Sufi fundamentalist, Tipu Sultan, etc. So this is the leaflet which was being circulated, and obviously from this content of the leaflet, you can see that the motivation behind the direct action day was basically inspired from the religious scriptures and the religious history of Islam. Um, Furthermore, there is a secret circular which was being spread among the Muslims, which basically was calling for the total annihilation of Hindus. And it had points like point one, all Muslims of India should die for Pakistan. Point two, with Pakistan established, the whole of India should be conquered. Point three, all people of India should be converted to Islam. Point four, all Muslim kingdoms, Ummah, right, should join hands with the Anglo American exploitation of the whole world. Point five, one Muslim should get the right of five Hindus. That is, each Muslim is equal to five Hindus. Again, this idea, this comparison with by numbers, it was inspired by some of the authentic hadiths. Point six, until Pakistan and Indian Empire is established, the following steps should be taken, such as all factories and shops owned by the Hindus should be burned, destroyed, looted, and loot should be given to the League office. And then all Muslim leaguers should carry weapons in defiance of order. C, all nationalist Muslims, if they do not join the League, the secular Muslims, should be killed by secret Gestapo. And then Hindus should be murdered, killed gradually, and their population should be reduced. And then all temples should be destroyed. And then Muslim League spies in every village and district of India should kill the Congress leaders one by one every month by secret method. And then Congress upper offices should be destroyed by secret Muslim Gestapo. And then Karachi, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Goa, Vizag should be paralyzed by December 1946 by Muslim League volunteers. And then Muslims should never be allowed to work under Hindus. And then Muslims should sabotage whole of India and Congress government for the final invasion of India by Muslims. And then final financial resources are given should be given to Muslim League, and then all arms weapons should be distributed to the Muslims in Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Madras, Bangalore, Lahore, Karachi, and other branches of Muslim League. Then all section of Muslim League should carry minimum equipment of weapons, at least pocket knife at all times, to destroy Hindus and drive all Hindus out of India. And then all transport should be used for battle against Hindus. And then Hindu women and girls should be RAPED, kidnapped and converted into Muslims by October 18th, 1946. And then Hindu culture should be destroyed. And then all leaders should try to be cruel at all times to Hindus and boycott them socially, economically, and many other ways. And finally, no Muslims should buy from Hindu dealers. All Hindu produced films should be boycotted. All Muslim leaders should obey these instructions and bring into action by September 15th, 1946. So this was basically, you can see that in this leaflet, the Muslim League had a very clear plan to boycott Hindus, kill Hindus, right? Violate the chastity of Hindu women, and then by economically boycotting, and then through this sort of armed, like you should not call it a rebellion, because rebellion, I mean, it's some sort of a jihad, right, against Hindus, to sort of with the final motive to conquer India and convert all the Hindus to Islam, right? So, and then it goes on. Like there was this Muslim League leader Abu Hasim, who specifically said in 29th of July 1946 that justice and equity have failed, and shining steel will decide the issue. Okay. Surawardi, again the then Prime Minister of Bengal, he declared that the violence for the cause of Pakistan was not necessarily evil, right? And he writes, quote, bloodshed and disorder are not necessarily evil in themselves if resorted to for a noble cause. Among Muslims today, no cause is dearer or nobler than Pakistan, unquote. Okay, so it goes on and on. Basically, I am explicitly saying all these things to sort of show you that there was no sort of noble motivation behind the creation of Pakistan. It was a very fundamentalist idea that was adopted by the Muslim League leaders and ended up in this Direct Action Day on 16th of August, 1946 in Calcutta, and eventually led to partition, right? Uh, okay, so now I'm going to tell you what exactly happened on 16th of August, 1946, right? So, almost a week
Bijitda,
before. Mhm.
Before we go to the, can we take a few comments if you don't mind? So there are a few
Sure, sure.
interesting
Let's, yeah,
comments.
let's do that.
Questions has
Let's do that.
come.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's one interesting comment from Abhay Agarwal. So I'll put the comment on the screen and I'll read it as well. Other than Shama Prasad Mukherjee, who do you think had a part to play in getting the Hindu side of Bengal to get together? He means to get the Hindus into so that the West Bengal becomes part of India, not Bangladesh, as it was
Right,
envisioned.
right. I mean, so it is actually a very unfortunate period of in the history of Bengal as well, because other than Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, um, we I cannot recall any specific famous leader who was addressing for. I mean, okay, first, who was addressing against the partition, and then after the partition was proposed and accepted by Congress and Muslim League and British, who basically talked about the partition of East Pakistan, right, in March 1947 to create West Bengal. Um, yeah, I cannot unfortunately recall anyone. I know the one of the brothers of our Subhash Chandra Bose. I think his name was Sarad Bose, who was actually telling that Bengal should not be divided into West Bengal and East Pakistan. Bengal should remain united, uh, and yeah, Hindus should sort of Hindu Bengalis should accept their whatever their destiny is in that East Pakistan. So this was the brother of Subhas Bose. I think his name was Sarad Bose, who actually told that the whole of West Bengal should not be divided. I mean the whole of West Bengal should stay with Bangladesh, right? As an united Bengal, although Hindus are in minority in most of the part of Bengal, of the then Bengal. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. We'll take one more question and we'll go back to the reading. So who was Jogannath? Okay, what was the role
What
of
was
Jogannath Mandal's role in the Bangladesh creation?
right? I mean, it's a very good question actually, and it actually deserves an extensive discussion. So allow me like 5 minutes, okay? Now
Please go
that
ahead.
this topic has appeared. So Jogendranath Mandal was from this quote unquote lower caste community, Namasudro, I guess, and he made a party called Tafasili Party, I guess. Okay, and his idea was that because the so-called lower caste Hindus and Muslims in India are economically backward, so there exists a common sort of objective for these two communities to come together, um, topple this, Babu, like the plans of the organization's name Congress, which are made of these Hindu Babus, right? I mean, they used to consider Congress as a upper caste Hindu organization, both Muslim League and Jogin Mandal. So they sort of got together, and their alliance basically fought together this 1946 election. As a result, Muslim League basically swept the election in much of the then Bengal. Okay, which eventually uh, led to the creation of East Pakistan. Um Right. And other than that, I mean, to go into even deeper into this topic. So Jogin Mandal used to okay. So when around like after 1940s, um, there was this obviously talk about this whole caste discrimination, right? And this fault line between so-called upper caste and lower caste Hindus, but it did not sort of permeate into the rural society of Bengal. So what this guy Jogen Mandal used to do, he used to go to these remote villages and all these places, and used to talk to sort of wage violence against the upper caste Hindus, right? And what happened as a consequence of that was very severe. So previously, because Hindus were united, all the upper and lower caste Hindus, they could effectively give better and greater resistance to all the sort of Islamic jihad perpetrated on them, right? Now, because Jogen Mandal was saying that the upper caste Hindus are actually the interest of the upper caste Hindus were against the interest of the lower caste Hindus, the fault line became more prominent. Okay, and this thing was being discussed in the universities campuses, everywhere, right? Once it became a narrative, it pretty much became a mainstream. It was fueled by the British also. As a result, what happened? The upper caste and lower caste got sort of segmented into sort of different strata, so to say, with their clashing interest, right? And it became easier for the Muslim League to penetrate and rake havoc into the Hindu community, to break the Hindu community, to convert the Hindus, and eventually that led to the whole genocidal episodes in Bangladesh. By the way, Jogin Mondal became, I think, the law minister after Pakistan was created, but he was seeing all this. I mean, um, his doctrine that the this economic interest, the common economic interest of the lower caste Hindus and the lower caste Hindus and the Muslims will save each other. It it became sort of, it was proven very much false after the partition of India, and it was the Namashudra community, another, so to say, lower caste community, who basically experienced the like first, like who experienced the most brutal form of genocides in Bangladesh, um, which means that Jogen Mondal was proven wrong, right? He was proven wrong. I mean, his doctrine was could be fine, but Jogen Mondal did not know the details of Islam. That's the problem, because no matter whether a community is a lower caste Hindu or upper caste Hindu, in the eyes of the Islamic doctrine, both the communities are kafir communities. Okay, which means that it is so the Muslims are duty bound to destroy the kafir culture and convert the kafirs into Islam. Okay, and it is because it is a spiritual doctrine, it is a spiritual order coming from the heaven, right? Like the economic interest of the lower caste Hindus, no matter how much it matches with the Bengali Muslims, it cannot match the standard set by the Almighty Allah, right? Um, so yeah, Jogen Mondal was proven wrong, and he gave his resignation, I guess, in March 1950 or so. He came back to Bengal, West Bengal, and he fought, I think, a couple of elections as well. He did not get success, uh, and he died, I think, in 1960s. I think in 1964 or so. So all these Jumla right now that are being talked and discussed, Jai Bhim, Jai Meme, and all these Jumla. So the father of this Jai Bhim, Jai Meme Jumla was actually Muslim League and Jogen Mandal. And this experiment has been done already in Bengal to sort of conjoin the interest of the so-called lower caste Hindu and Muslim. It did not work. It is never going to work. Why? Because of this us and them otherization, right? Islam does not think lower caste Hindus as their own, right? So, as we have discussed in the previous episode, there is a very clear demarcation between us, which is this Muslim, and them, which is the non-Muslim, right? In Islamic doctrine. So every time, because lower caste, so-called lower caste Hindus are the others in the eyes of Islam, they are ought to be dehumanized and converted, or maybe killed, right? If they don't agree to convert or pay jizya, uh, as ordained by Allah in the Islamic scripture. Yeah, so this is a brief history of Jogen Mandal that I wanted to talk about.
Sure. So we will take the audience questions at 9:30 p.m. So we have very good questions today. So if you can read up a small part, we can finish in 15 minutes, so that would be fine. So
Okay, cool. So yeah, so we are discussing about the events that led to 16th of August 1946, that the direct action day, right? So yeah, the plan was basically proposed by Suravardi mainly, and a few other Muslim League leaders, and to sort of implement it, basically Muslim trucks were bringing weapons to Calcutta and storing them in places like 8 Zakaria Street and Nakhoda Mosque the week before 16th of August. Muslim shops in Calcutta started marking Pakistan in their addresses. Okay, so all these shops owned by Muslims in Calcutta, they started to write it as like Pakistan, because again their plan was to include Calcutta in the East Pakistan, right? The youths who lived in Muslim hostels were prepared to set fire to tram cars, the tram, right, cars, and military trucks on 16th of August. Then the young guys were sharpening weapons in Raja Bazar, Ripon Square, Belgachia, and Dharmotola. A number of forewarnings by police officers were grossly disregarded. Suravardi on 16th of August told Muslims at the Ochterlony monument that you have 24 hours, which is basically, I think, the Shahid Minar. He basically said that you have 24 hours, do whatever you are capable of to establish Pakistan. Okay. And then the mosques in Calcutta were being used as military outposts just before and during the killings. Um, right. And so once they sort of gathered a lot of weapons, then they started the massacre, the genocide, right? So it was 7 a.m., 16th of August, 1946. So the whole thing started in Maniktola, basically the bazaar in Maniktola. And then it spread to CR Avenue, Bidon Street, Charity Bazaar, Chitpur, Shialda, Ripon Street, Wellesley Street, Mollik Bazaar, to name a few. Sergeant E. Williams, uh, he tried to sort of curb it down. He tried to nip it in the bud in the early morning, but he was obstructed along with all the lady operators of the Lal Bazaar telephone office. He was escorting in Central Avenue. The Bartola police station was attacked by the Muslims, and the policemen repeatedly called the Lal Bazaar police asking for armed forces. Now, but he did not get any help. Then it was around 10:30 a.m. in Maniktola where it started, right, as early as 7 a.m. So at 10:30 in Maniktola, the Muslims started to stab Hindus and loot the Hindu shops. Around 11:50 a.m., the massacres of Hindu families and the looting of Hindu property started in various places like Harrison Road, Vivekanand Road, Zakaria Street, College Street, Central Avenue. Okay. And then soon the police forces were outnumbered by the Muslim mob, where when the streets of Calcutta were getting soaked in Hindu blood, the then Prime Minister of Bengal, Hussein Surawardi, moved to the control room of Calcutta police in Lal Bazar to watch the situation, quote unquote, watch the situation, right? And then no police officer could move arms without his permission, right? Um, and Tothagato Rai wrote a book named My People Uprooted, and I'm quoting from his book that, quote, generally the police, especially the Pathan policemen, recruited by Niaz Muhammad Khan or the Anglo-Indian sergeants, showed supreme indifference to whatever was going on. It also appeared that at least a section of them were under orders to foment trouble, not prevent or stop it. As for the army, Wolpert writes that the brigadier in charge of Calcutta, JPC McKinley, had ordered his troops to be confined to barracks that day, and observes that India's largest, most crowded, and most communally volatile city, that is Calcutta, was left virtually naked. Okay. Uh, right. So it basically around 12 o'clock at noon. Basically, it was at peak, right? Pelting was taking place full fledged near the Rajavajar Science College and the near corner of Vivekanand Road. Soon the mob broke into Rai Sahib BC De's house, as reported by the Rai Sahib himself to the police commissioner. A judge of Dharmotola named Mr. Banerjee was killed by the jihadi mob while he tried to protect a little child at around 11:50 a.m. So they killed a member of judiciary as well. Okay. A large crowd of around 1,000 Muslims gathered in Narkeldanga around 11 a.m. to set the Hindu houses on fire. Between 11 a.m. and 12 noon on the same day, a crowd of around 2,000 Muslims set fire to all Hindu houses on the Raja Dinendra Street. Important houses on the same street were looted. The mob then started to set Hindu houses on fire at around 1:30 p.m. Susitola was set ablaze, and five corpses of Hindus were recovered from Narkildanga main road. At 3 p.m., a huge number of Hindus were slaughtered on the west side of the canal at Godpur. At around 4 or 5 p.m., shops around the Lighthouse Cinema Hall were broken into and plundered. The Bengal Club was stormed around 4:20 p.m. Around 4:30 p.m., the Muslim mob stormed into the armor shop of KC Biswas near Metro Cinema and looted all guns and other weapons. Around 5:10 p.m., a jihadi mob looted Dharmotola and Chandni Chowk Bazaar, Sen and Law Company's shop, Bata Company's shop at Wellesley Street, and the large cycle shop of Lakshmikanta Das in Lower Circular Road were looted. In the afternoon of 16th of August, the Mohisadol Rajwadi was attacked and all the belongings of the house were looted. The eldest son of the famous historian, Jadunath Sarkar, so the eldest son of Jadunath Sarkar was killed while his grandson escaped somehow. Okay, this along with this whole episode that was going on in the Metiaburus of the Khidirpur area where Muslims were in dominance, but there were these Odia Hindu slums as well. I mean, you can call it basti or slums. Um, so, in the Metiaburus of the Khidirpur area, all the Hindu slums were destroyed completely, resulting in the massacre of at least 500 Hindus. A whole labor contingent of 500 Odia laborers who worked in the Kesoram mills of Bidlas were butchered by the jihadis. Biswanath Das, the then ex Prime Minister of Odisha, came to Calcutta later to see with his own eyes the extent of the killing of Odia Hindus. Okay, and it goes on. Um, I mean, it just goes on and on. And finally, as per the official report, Lord Wavell claimed that more lost their lives in the great Calcutta killings than in the Battle of Plassey. Ulpert quotes that around 16,000 were killed in the in this jihad between 16th and 20th August 1946. Bhavani Prasad Chatterjee claims that at least 50,000 were seriously injured in this jihad. And Omrit Bazar Patrika wrote there that that at least 40,000 casualties in Calcutta riots rather than 4,000, which was officially stated, right? And I would like to end with a quotation by Leonard Mosley, who wrote in the last days of the British Raj. That's the name of the book. So Leonard Mosley wrote that the filthy and dreadful slaughter changed the shape of India and the course of history. The corpses of men, women, and children lay stinking in the gutters of Chorongi Square, until the only reliable garbage collectors of India, the vultures, picked them clean, and with every mournful, they picked away the fabric of unitary India and finally tore it into two, India and Pakistan. Right? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijitda, for this reading, all the information. I think the audience got a lot of information, a lot of insights, which we would not have got if you haven't written the book. So appreciate your effort coming here and sharing us the information. So we will go back to questions. We have a lot of good questions. So we'll start with the first question from Shaptorshi. Could author tell us about, is there any specification on genocide rate of progression? Because there is a slow rate of genocide going on in Pakistan and also in, I'll not say the name, people can read it. So he mentions, he is trying to say is that there is a slow killing of Hindus happening in Pakistan, also in Bangladesh, which is going on. So because it's not a rapid way, there's not a rapid violence happening, so people don't notice it. But we see stories, news coming in that one Hindu girl was abducted and married off. Somebody got killed. Some Hindus are getting killed. So he's saying it's a slow rate of genocide which is happening in Pakistan, also in Bangladesh. So, what is your opinion on that?
Right. Um, I mean, I think so. Specifically, uh, if we try to ask the question whether the events that are going on in Pakistan or Bangladesh with the Hindus uh, fit the definition of genocide. Okay, so let's discuss this part. Yes, okay, this is definitely comes under the UN's definition of genocide as um, defined in the Article 2 of the Genocide Convention in United Nations. Why? Because the Genocide Convention in Article 2 identifies two important elements of a genocide. One is the mental element, which is basically, and I'm quoting here, the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. Okay, now this is the mental element which basically constitute the intent. Now, this intent is the most difficult element to sort of determine, right? I mean, you cannot prove um, pointifically that okay, this is the intent of the Bangladeshi or the Pakistani state to sort of destroy all the Hindus. But in part B, there is a physical element, okay, as defined by again even in Article 2. So the in part B, there is a physical element of genocide which includes the following five acts. First one is killing members of the group, which happens sporadically, although, right? Sporadically but perpetually. It has been going on. Point two is causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. I mean, very evidently happening in Pakistan and also in Bangladesh. Like, okay, there are some treason charges being filed against our spiritual leaders, for example, right? Point three, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Okay, so the conditions of Hindus in Bangladesh and Pakistan are getting worse by the state policies and the discriminations therein. Point four, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Okay. Uh, and point five, which is again very manifest and very evident in the context of Pakistan and Bangladesh. Point five is forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So all these forcible. So do you know that every day around three Hindu girls are abducted in Pakistan, and then they are either converted through some form of marriage or forcibly, just like that. You know, so obviously, whatever Pakistan is doing regularly comes under the definition of genocide. Yes.
Thank you, Bijita, for this detailed answer. We have a second a comment. Your comment is required. Would you like to know Bijit sir's comment on the book Kolkata Koshai Khana, written by Gopal Patha's grandson? So, have you read the book? You know about the book?
Right, right. So Kolkata Koshagana, I mean, basically Tothagato Roy uh, got a huge amount of sort of influence from that book, and he has extensively discussed um, various parts of this book in his own work, which is titled "My People Uprooted." Okay, so yeah, I mean, it is a very important book to sort of understand the contemporary politics and the events that happened around that time. And it is a
Sure.
primary reference for our work. Yes,
Yeah, we have a very important question from HV Didi. Let me just fetch the question.
sure.
Okay, we have one more question from Abhay Agarwal. We can take this and then I'll take the HV Didi's question. So the next question from Abhay Agarwal. Don't you think this plan being executed? Okay, I think there is one more before that. Let me just. Uh, yeah, okay, yeah. So don't you think this plan is being executed in India even today through RULLS, a random increasing low
Seizing low
level
level
scattered
scattered
violence?
violence. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Indian state in some form is a genocidal state that is also an accomplice in the genocide of Hindus. I mean, all the I mean, a large part of the law, for example, and the rights that are given to the so-called minority community, specifically, I think from Article 25 to 30, I guess, right? It basically allows these communities who basically were the main factor behind the partition of India. So our constitution gives them the right to sort of establish their own institute, their own form of law and governance, and in the process create a parallel state within the state to sort of grow big and then challenge the state itself, right? Which is the Indian state. So I totally agree with it that this random, unceasing, low-level scattered violence is an outcome of the policies being adopted by the Indian state, which is an abnormal state. So there is a very famous quote, right, which says that the Indian state is an abnormal state for a completely normal nation. Indian nation is a very normal nation. It has a very glorious civilizational past, but the Indian state that is running the nation, right, all these apparatus are abnormal. And and a reason behind it is that, for example, when the British came here and started to sort of um, invent their own law to govern this country, they basically borrowed a lot of idea from Shariat, and they were. I mean, there are so many writings by the British which explicitly acknowledges that okay, because India was being ruled by the Muslims for a long time, so what we are going to do, we are going to borrow a lot of ideas, um, a lot of sort of laws directly from the Shariat. And obviously, Shariat is what? Shariat is in the interest of Islam, not in the interest of Hindus, definitely. So, because of that, there is a lot of deformity and abnormality found in the Indian Penal Code itself. Okay, for example, like that the Kashmiri Hindu genocide. I mean, it is still not acknowledged by the Indian judiciary. They are not ready to open up the case. I mean, how can you expect Indian state to deliver justice to Hindus when the state itself is a Hindu genocidal state? So yes, I mean, whatever things going on in India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, those are the outcome of bad laws. As simple as that.
Sure. Thank you, Vijita, for this very important question that you have answered. So we have one more question from HP Didi. So can sir explain about Wahhabi Titumir, who was whitewashed as Bengali revolutionary? I am struggling to find any literature to read about him from Hindu perspective.
Right. So let me try to find out. I have written about it as well. I mean, one of the references is definitely my book. Okay. So yeah, you can buy this book. And then let me quote from there. Uh, I have used primary references. So just give me a minute. Titumir and his Barasat Jihad. Okay, so there is a lot of writing. I think there was one British guy who wrote about him, whose name is John Russell Colvin. Okay, and he wrote about this guy Titumir and his Tariki Muhammad movement in Bengal, which basically means the customs of the Prophet movement in Bengal, which called for elimination of the shirk and bidat, which means polytheism, and bidat, which is innovation. So Titumir started to run this Tariq-e-Muhammad movement, customs of the Prophet movement, which called for the elimination of polytheism and innovation from the soil of Bengal. This movement was waged with a Puritan ideology to take society back to the time of the Prophet and lead one's life in the same manner the Prophet had more than a millennia ago in the Arabia. Titumir's bigoted idea of a revolution provided him the justification to kill Hindus and their cattle, assassinate Brahmins and Hindu zamindars. Colvin writes, quote, the zealots had begun to assemble in great numbers. By November 6, they had gathered. They began their operations in the time honored way in which the Mohammedans in India declared war against his Hindu brother. They seized and killed a cow, sprinkling the blood over the walls of a Hindu temple and hanging up the carcass in front of that building. Then a Brahmin was killed with the SLAUGHTER of a cow and a Brahmin. Vengeance had begun prosperously. The Hindus turned out to oppose Titumiya and his host. Another Brahmin was claimed by vengeance. Uh, and then there was another account. This is a secondary account by Narahari Kobiraj. Um, well, he was a Marxist historian, but he wrote a book, Wahhabi and Farezi Rebels of Bengal. And there he writes actually a long quotation, but basically where Narahari Kobiraj is saying that Titumir said the following to his followers that, okay, quote, this country is now given to our Deen Muhammad. You must therefore immediately and send grain to the army. um, basically basically adding fuel to the fundamentalist flames which were prevalent at that time. And then if you try to source, okay, if you try to understand what was the source of his ideology, this came from this idea that, okay, so this guy went to Makkah for Hajj, where he met this guy Sayyid Barelvi, right, who was the founder of Barelvi movement in India. And then his preaching, the preaching of Sayyid Ahmed in 1820 to 1822, passed unheeded by the British authorities. But among the disciples of the new apostle in Calcutta was one known to his fellows as Titumia, to the authorities as Mir Nisar Ali. This man had begun life as a small cultivator, and he was probably a leader of a robber gang. He drifted in course of time to Calcutta, where he became a wrestler. Then he passed into the service of one of the large landed proprietors, who basically he became a gunda, जिसको वो पैसा वसूलने के लिए रखा जाता था. And then the business of these bullies was to break each other's heads over their masters' disputes, right? Gunda basically. And this occupation brought Titumia, who was an expert at it, within the four walls of one of the company's jails. तो एक बार मारपीट करके जेल गया. And the experience seems to have led to a distaste for engaging in other people's quarrels. तो अब से उसको लफड़े में engage नहीं होना था. On his release, he took the ship to Makkah, where salvation awaited him, as written by John Colvin. And then for Sayyid Ahmed, made him a disciple of this whole Barelvi movement, and sent him back as an apostle to India. He preached the Wahhabi tenets, which is again one of the most fundamentalist tenets of Islam. And, to the north and east of Calcutta, many adhered to the apostle. Some doubted, others made a scoff of him. But apostles are not to be lightly scoffed at. Titumia, though now enlisted in the service of a divine master, had not forgotten the cunning of the right hand, which had been once raised in the earthly interests. तो बेसिकली बरेलवी मूवमेंट जो चालू हुआ था, उसका पहला जो अपोस्टल डिसाइपल था this guy Titumij, and he started this jihad against the Hindu zamindars um, in and around Barasat. Now I have a very specific. So in this book I have put like 5 questions to the Marxist historians who are trying to portray him as a freedom fighter, right? Okay, so here I write that many Marxo-Ashrafi historians, such as Otis Dasgupta and Gautam Bhadra, to name a few, have tried to portray Titumir's jihad as a peasant rebellion against the local oppressive zamindars, right? But they fail to explain a few issues with their typical class struggle narrative. Point one: why was the temple desecrated and the Brahmins killed in a peasant movement? Point two: why was the motto called Tariq Muhammad and not the peasant movement? Right? How can such a Wahhabi Puritan movement be possibly implemented in the shape of a peasant movement? Right? Point three: why couldn't it gather the support of local Hindu peasants, who was as poor and as numerous as the Muslim Bengali peasants at their time? Point four: why only Hindu and no Muslim zamindars were targeted by the Mujahids? Point five: how can the policy of refraining from practicing shirk as ordained by Titumir be called non-communal? So these are the 5 specific questions that I'm asking to the Marxo Ashraf historians. If they can answer these questions, I mean, uh, correctly, right, they will get an idea whether this movement, Barasat movement of Titumir, was a Islamic jihad or it was a genuine freedom struggle, secular freedom struggle, so to say. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Somebody who's listening to this stream might answer your questions someday. We hope so. We'll go
Sure.
to the next question. Very important question asked by Abhay Agarwal. So the question is from Abhay Agarwal: what do you think about the ethno-linguistic divide among Hindus in West Bengal? How we can solve it? So he's talking
Ethno-linguistic.
about, yeah, he's talking about, I think, Marwadi and like Bangali and Bangali divide, which is there in Kolkata specifically and also outside Kolkata.
Right. So again, so in my belief, a lot of problems that India is facing right now can be solved. Um, would have been solved by now if, again, the Indian state um, took up the right measures right after the partition of India in 1947. One um, one step that Indian state could have taken was to promote Sanskrit. Right. So there is already a very pre-existing theory which used to be a very funny hypothesis, um, and if you which is the Aryan invasion theory, right? And then developing the whole linguistic evolution of all the languages and all these things from the viewpoint of the Aryan invasion theory, right? uh, Now if you read the Bengali literature uh, at around that time, you would see that people are just writing fictions based on this idea, right? I mean, there's this guy Sharadindu Bandyopadhyay. Is it Bandyopadhyay, right? Sharadindu Bandyopadhyay, right? Uh, who is basically writing. So he wrote this Oitihasik Kahini Samagra, I guess, which is basically the collection of historical fictions. Okay, and in one of the fiction, he basically, so all these were again historical fictions. They were not historically genuine account. Now in this collection of his novels on historical fictions, he is writing an account of how this Aryan invasion theory could have played out, right? So it is again not a genuine research work. It used to be not considered a genuine historical work, okay, for a very long time within India, okay. But then gradually, this became a mainstream sort of um, quote unquote scientific work, right? Um, so one way to, and this Aryan invasion theory again created a huge divide, right? Basically, it created this. It basically, I don't know, substantiated the existence of caste in our country. It somehow tried to then explain the history behind the so-called North-South divide. I mean, it did not used to exist, right? And because of now this new doctrine, people started to make politics around it, and it got I mean, right now it is so complicated that it will take a huge amount of academic and otherwise effort to untangle and address. Okay, but one way to sort of nip this in the bud would have been to promote Sanskrit, because pretty much all the Indian languages are hugely indebted to Sanskrit. Okay, and even if you argue that okay, the maybe the structural framework of, for example, Tamil or Telugu, they're not. Um, they don't seem to be directly related to Sanskrit, but they have, I think, 40 to 50% words in Tamil Telugu are indated from Sanskrit. That tells us something, right? That it had a logical historical connection. But I mean, there hasn't been much research on this topic. So if we can do that even now, we can start to sort of promote and understand and popularize Sanskrit, and give funding in the linguistic research around this language and its evolution in different corners of India. Uh, and then that will create a unified narrative among Hindus that hey, this is whatever language we are talking in, and whatever we're doing, we are sort of united through this common sort of language and its ancestry, right? This is one way to do it. Second way, I mean, obviously, would have been to understand the cultural identity of Bengal, right? So I say this thing very specifically that um, it was Iqbal that created Pakistan, and it was Tagore that created Bangladesh. Okay, which basically means that um, when the narrative of East Pakistan, right, started to sort of wander around this whole possible Urduization, right? Because the West Pakistan tried to impose Urdu on the East Pakistan, but East Pakistan sort of responded very violently. They fought this whole freedom struggle to sort of free themselves from the clutches of West Pakistan, and a possible Urduization of their language. And which language was it? It was the Rabindrik Bengali, right? And now whatever is going on in Bangladesh is basically again is the fight against this Rabindrik Bengali. You know, this Rabindrik Upanishad Bengali. It's because Rabindranath was at the end of the day a Upanishad poet. He got so much inspired from Upanishad, and if you start to sort of understand, okay, the final few like Rabindra Sangeet and his sort of spiritual poems, they are highly indebted to Upanishad, right? So again, it is Rabindranath and Upanishad who are defining the cultural identity of Bengalis. Okay, so you have to sort of go that deep and sort of popularize this idea that anyone who want to subvert this Bengali identity is basically trying to subvert the narrative proposed by Rabindranath and proposed by Upanishad, right? And this Upanishad talks about humanity, not about kafir or Muslims and all these things. So yeah, it will take up some amount of education from the for the speaker to speak it out, right? But we have to speak it out. We have to specifically say that no matter whether a Marwadi is there or a Bengali is there living in Calcutta, they are living by the same golden standard and identity as enshrined in Upanishad, right? Yeah, so that's my answer to this question.
Thank you, Bijita, for this wonderful answer. I think everybody audience would understand what he's trying to say, and maybe we can, in our own lives, try to imbibe this by not putting so much importance on whether I am from Bihar or Orissa or some other place. Just consider yourself as a Hindu first, an Indian
Right,
first. Okay, so as announced in the stream, so we will be now posting a special discount code which Bijitda has given to us, to Navavimarsh. Veda, you had given to us. So we will post the discount code right now in the chat, and we will pin it. So people can go ahead and buy the book on garudabooks.com. So I will ask the backend admin to paste the URL of Garuda Books and
right.
also the discount code on the chat, so that people can go ahead, go to the Garuda Books URL, and also put the discount code to buy the book. So it's a handsome discount for people who are buying it. Also in Garuda Books, the book is priced lesser than in Amazon, so you'll also save more money. And they also are
Right.
running a discount there. So I think this is the best time to go and buy the book. So you will get
Right.
additional discount from Garuda, as well as the additional discount that we are providing you from Navavimarsh for our audience.
Cool.
So everybody go ahead and buy the book, read the book. I think everybody would enjoy this book reading.
Right.
They will get more information. Yeah. Hopefully, I will have the book next week at my place. So I will read and share it with you as well. And the last one that I want to update is that we had announced a one book giveaway for this episode as well. So today's winner is Abhay Agarwal. He had asked amazing, excellent questions today. So Abhay Agarwal, please send us an email to navavimarsh@gmail.com. You'll find our email in description and also in the channel description. Again, navavimarsh, single word, @gmail.com. Send your email with your Abhay Agarwal email ID, and we will reach out to you, and we will ship the book to your address. So, congrats to Abhay Agarwal for asking brilliant question and winning a book for this episode.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, all done for this week. So we will have Bijitda available next week as well for another reading of his book that we are going through. So we will have 5 sessions of this book specifically, where we will discuss important aspects of Indian history in connection with the Hindu genocide, which is being taking place for over a millennia or more. Bijitda, I will have one question before we finish this stream today.
Sure.
What do you think? So when you mention the correct narrative, so Iqbal, Sir Syed Ahmed, uh, personal laws. So these create a certain kind of narratives which the common people would latch into and identify themselves.
Right.
What is your opinion that why the Hindus as a society are unable to create a narrative to unite them under whatever branch of philosophy? It could be Advaita, it could be anything else. Why we are unable to unite Hindus of multiple panths into a political identity which they can defend themselves as other faiths do?
Right. Okay, so to start with, I would definitely say that Hindus are united. It is just because we are facing so many threats um, from outside. It seems like we are not united, but it is a very functional country. We have so many languages, so many provinces, so much culture. Food is different, languages are different, right? In spite of that, I can talk to someone who is from Hyderabad or from Tamil Nadu without any difficulty, right? One of the reason is, okay, English is a common denominator, but other than that, I mean, the other main denominator is our culture, our philosophy, our lifestyle. And I mean, in spite of all the political propaganda that are going on, right, there is this whole layer of hatred in the political sphere. In spite of that, I mean, no one feels like some random guy from Tamil Nadu doesn't think like we have to annihilate people of Bengal. So we are united, okay? It's not like we are fighting a big war of our existence, or we are Hindus are trying to rip apart India to create their own nations. I mean, no matter whether random communist guys say that there are different nations within India, it is not true. Um, and it is our lived experience that India is a whole country, united country. Okay, but there is another part to the question which is very essential to sort of counter the narratives that are hitting us, right? That are invading us, which is that um, um, because we are Hindu, we are unconverted, quote unquote. We are unconverted, which basically means that we don't source our morality um, from an outside superficial book. Okay, so all these scriptures that are written in Upanishad, Veda, those comes from within. Okay, these are spontaneous morality that guides us and that guides these books as well, right? And that sets the standard for judgment. It's not like whenever someone is saying a sloka from Mandukya Upanishad, it's not like I am just going to stop thinking and just follow whatever is written there, right? We analyze our slokas, right? We reinvent, we evolve, right? We put it in the modern context. And there is this bidat. In Islam, bidat is haram, right? Innovation is haram. In our code of morality, bidat, innovation is not haram. So we are unconverted people who have this spontaneous sense of morality, and we have a whole library of books, not to prescribe our behavior but to describe our behavior. Okay, um, but there is this whole lot which are quote unquote the converted people, right? The Abrahamics, who source their code of morality from specific books, right? They have their own single book, their own single god, who sort of sets the code apparently, and they have to guide by them. They cannot question um, those ethical codes um, enshrined in their book. So so those books basically prescribe their morality, not merely describe their set of morality. Okay, and that creates a huge difference. So they have their book which says them ki bhai, okay, you have to convert the whole world into some Abrahamic fold respectively, right? And they work with that sort of external sort of goal that they have, as said by those scriptures. Now, we being unconverted and we being spontaneous, we don't understand what this intention morality actually means, and how it can guide a people to sort of wreak havoc, okay, to sort of destroy other native cultures, native spontaneous cultures, right? We don't know how spirituality can be can be politicized. Okay, well, recently learning it but the so-called Hindutva movement, right? But we did not have no idea how to politicize God. And then we also don't know how to mask political intention, with spirituality. That's a very important thing, right? I mean, I we don't use some verses said by Shiva to sort of kill other people, right? Uh, and that's a huge difference. We have to understand how the converted people think, to mask their intention, to propagate their political goals, to commit genocide, to whitewash their historical crimes, to create historical fictions, okay, to usurp their political power by sort of getting united and voting within democracy in a very constant pattern. So we Hindus have to learn these things, and the only way Hindus can learn these masking of jihad and all these things, by reading the scripture of the others, by doing the purva vaksh. So it is important to know what is written there in the Hindu scripture, and we get it, we learn it from our parents, right? From our dadi, nani, right? They tell us stories, and we learn a lot of things. Satyavan Savitri, or our Nal Damayanti, right? That sets the standard of some sort of pious woman, right? And then we have Bhishma, we have Ram, we have Krishna, to set the moral standard of a man, right? But along with that, we have to, when we are getting mature, we have to learn the Abrahamic scriptures as well, not to adopt their lifestyle, but to question them, question their scripture. We have to learn their books as a critique of their book, okay, and that is very important. We have to do the purva paksha of the Abrahamic scriptures. And in this book also, in my this history of Hindumisia Hindu genocide, there is a part 4 where I have worked on a framework where I have tried to show the Abrahamic paradoxes. Okay, how values get subverted in the Abrahamic context. So by reading the Abrahamic scriptures, so yes, we have to read their scriptures to save ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, last question before we say goodbye to everybody. So this is from Abizen. The question: does the author think Hindu genocide memorial in New York proposed by Trump would be helpful, and what should include it there, like lesser known genocides?
Right. Yes, it will definitely help. Um, why? Because so there is a okay. So again, I have to start from the history, right? So when Macaulay promoted in this minutes of English education, I guess that was the uh, draft that he wrote in order to promote the English education in India. He wrote that his main motive was to create some sort of Indian zimmis, right? To create a working class who will talk in the language of the British, which means who will talk in the language of the West. So whatever the West will be thinking, UK or US will be thinking, their mainstream politicians, their historians will be thinking, it will be promoted in India through these Macaulay, Macaulay historians, Macaulay news persons, right? So which means ki uh, whatever propaganda, whatever narrative is becoming prevalent in US and UK, they will be popularized in India through these Macaulay Putras, right? These Mac loyal people, right? Um, which again means ki if you set up a memorial in Washington DC or New York, then these Macaulay Putras will also have to talk in the language of US. Ki US has established this Hindu Genocide Museum, so Hindu genocide must be a historical reality to some extent. They cannot deny that. Now they are in complete denial. Ki, that the English British historian has denied that, so it is not true. It is a hoax or something. Once the museum is established in US, then India, a common Indian will get to know from people like us who are Indic, and also from the MacLoyal people. So it will be an universal narrative that the genocide of Hindus happened, and it is a historical reality.
Correct. So narrative is a very important role have to play to actually safeguard and save lives everywhere. Okay, especially for Hindus, narrative is one weak point which we have lacked for centuries, and it's time that we Hindus take up this onus on ourselves. Bijita has done by writing this book, but we all have to contribute in some way or the other by sharing our podcast to your friends, to your families. Subscribe to our channel so that we can have more guests like Bijita come and give us the knowledge, the wisdom that we should be having to defend our Hindu faith uh, across the globe to everyone. So, Nandi, do you have any questions to Bijita? I forgot about you. Sorry. Yeah, Nandi, go ahead.
These things are very new to me. I'm just taking it all in.
Cool, cool, yeah.
Yeah. But do you have any
Yeah,
questions
yeah.
to ask before we
No,
end this?
no. I'll ask in the next stream. I'll have to go like study about all this.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, Nandi. Thank you, Bijita, for coming.
Thank you.
And I'll request everybody to please subscribe to our channel. Please share your comments. Please share what you want to see more. Once you subscribe and share our channel, we'll have more guests like Bijita come in. So it will help us to actually get more authors come to our podcast. They can talk about their books, their experiences. And
Right.
thank you. Thank you, Bijita. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai
Thanks a lot.
Jai Sri Ram,
And buy my
Bande
book.
Mataram.
Buy my book.
I have your book to be shipped, so it is already being shipped.
Cool, cool. Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Jai Sri Ram, Bande
Jai
Mataram.
Jagan. Vande Mataram.
One